Sports Interactive have just dropped the first official feature reveal of FM24. We promised we'd break them down for you when they announce them, and we've got the first one here, all about the new and updated transfer system. We'll be going through all the news that they've given us, as well as what it means for you guys as the player. Is it a huge overhaul? Are they just little tweaks that you're not really going to notice? We'll cover all of that, and don't worry as well, every time they do a feature reveal, we will make a video breaking it down for you guys. If you do enjoy it, smash the like button, subscribe for more, and let's take a deep dive into what they are calling smarter transfers, squad building, and finance, or the improvements to those sections of the game. They've only just announced this a few minutes ago. I thought they'd also release the intermediaries one at the same time because they're listed under the same week, but no, that's coming soon, so we'll be able to make a video on all of these, it seems, if they're worth making a video on, of course. And I think this is definitely one that is. There's some aspects to what we're about to read from what I read earlier that are maybe small tweaks that aren't really going to affect you guys, and some that you'll definitely see some implications of in your game, some that they kind of just put on one line of text and you kind of have to glance over it and read it again to realise, okay, that's actually going to change things quite a lot in the FM world. So let's start off with the first part. Brace for more transfer battles. Now they're trying to make the Football Manager transfer market more realistic to real life here, or at least more realistic than it was in FM23 and previous iterations of Football Manager, where we've all had those issues where the AI are just making weird transfers, PSG and Man City stockpiling players that they're never going to use. You've also got like stupid offers coming in for your players, and this doesn't say they're going to fix every single aspect of that, but we should see a more accurate representation in game now of how a club would actually go about their transfers. It says here AI managers are now programmed to consider factors like form and reputation more so than ever before. We'll see how that really plays out, but what I do like is this: AI managers will look at the tactics that they're using and try and identify players that fit their tactical style, or at least that they have lacking in their squad. It uses the example here of a gegenpress system. If a manager had a gegenpress system, they might be looking specifically for players with high stamina and work rate, so they're really combining how a manager plays with a certain team to the kind of players that that club will then try and identify and bring in to the club. There's also supposedly going to be a stronger focus by the AI on a player's potential ability over their current ability when looking for backup players, so that might mean for you guys as a player that when you've got that good Wonderkid coming through, you might start getting more bids for them, even if they're not currently a star. It might be, say, that a team's got a 30-year-old right back and they need a new player in that position, but they don't necessarily need to replace the 30-year-old. They might look for a younger option in the market more than they would have done before, so that might mean that your Wonderkids are going to get more transfer offers than ever before, so brace yourselves if you are a small club for those big clubs trying to poach all of your players potentially. They then speak about something that I don't think is going to have a major influence on how we play the game, but just interesting that the game can even comprehend this, and that is when an AI club is loaning out their younger players, they're going to take into account the weaknesses and the things they want to develop in a player when loaning them out. For example, if they think a player is lacking physicality, it says they might send them to a club that's a more physical team. Maybe they send a player down to Millwall in the Championship or something like that. Just interesting to see that the game can even consider that. Again, is that really going to matter to us as a player where the AI are sending their youngsters? Not necessarily, but it might mean that we see more development in younger players, and that is something that's going to come up later on in this article that I think is the most interesting part of the whole thing. Now, as someone who likes to buy Wonderkids and see players develop in their saves, and I imagine many of you feel the same, this next part is something that I think is a huge upgrade. I'm surprised it gets such a little section in this whole article, but it is about the upgrade to the way that AI managers and your rivals will pick their squads and develop young players. So previously, as it mentions here, AI teams, if you didn't have a player that was very good but had lots of potential, the AI was never really using them. You might have seen it in your save. A common example is Yusuf Moukoko sometimes, despite being one of the best Wonderkids in the game, never gets picked by Borussia Dortmund. It's happened with Camavinga in the past when he signed for Real. Wasn't deemed good enough to start straight away, never develops because the game never gives him a chance, and you always get those Wonderkids. We speak about it all the time, but if you don't give them that development early on and sign them yourselves, you won't see them develop because the AI really doesn't do a very good job, or at least it didn't used to, of developing those youngsters. But now there's a higher probability that the managers will put them on the bench to use later on in the game, try to proactively encourage their development. They've also worked on how the AI managers prioritise their matches too. So they won't play their youngster against, say, Manchester United, but if you've got a cup match against a third division team and you're a Premier League side, you might see some of those youngsters getting more game time, which is something we obviously did as managers ourselves, but the AI managers didn't often do that. So it is good that we're going to see that to help aid a player's development. It's something that I definitely wanted in the game, and I'm very glad they've added it. And then this is my favourite part, this little section here that they kind of glance over, I think is going to make a huge change to how we all play FM. And that's alterations to player development. It looks like you're going to almost get different kinds of Wonderkids in the game. Some will see accelerated growth early on, as it mentions here, and hit their potential, like we've seen probably with Wonderkids before. You give them that development, they hit their potential, great. Meanwhile, you're going to also get late developers in game, players that maybe don't break through straight away, but later on do end up hitting that potential that they have. I mean, take Jamie Vardy, for example. That guy was in his mid-20s before anyone even really knew of him, then suddenly became one of the best strikers in the league for a little bit. Now, that was something that happens so often in football, these late development kind of players that we weren't seeing in Football Manager, and it'll be really cool to see how they implement this in game. I really think these changes here in these two articles are going to have a huge influence on the kind of players that you see come through in your saves. So many of those Wonderkids that start off with poor current ability and never develop, we should be seeing developing in a more accurate way in the Football Manager world. Then we get onto the finances section. I'm going to title this video something along the lines of what these changes really mean to you. And I feel like these changes personally aren't going to have a huge difference. They're cool, mind you, but I don't think they're going to really change the way we play the game. Basically, they've upgraded the finances section. You're going to get more clarity on where your money is going and where it's coming from through some extra news articles that the game is adding, and there's also going to be a better representation of your finances. If you have negative transfer budgets and you go into the red, you'll get a news item telling you, oh, by the way, we're this much below our transfer budget or wage budget, we need to sell some players on, and actually give you some examples of players to sell. And that should hopefully help your guys' rebuilds when you're taking over at those financially stricken clubs. You'll see the players straight away that you can sell on, and it gives you an idea of how much you need to recoup to get that money back in the green or the positive again. If you don't make that money back and your budgets are still sitting in that negative section, the board can actually take control and start selling players. Only once they've made that money back will they actually hand you back over the reins on the transfer front, which is pretty cool, but I don't think many of us will get in that situation unless you're really managing your finances badly. So I'm currently in the editing stage of this video, and I've realised I maybe have undersold a little bit of what you can do here, or maybe not given the best explanation, but you can now actually overspend your transfer budget, so you could technically go into the negative, which is what I mentioned there. And if you do that and then don't make the money back that you've overspent, the board's then going to take control and start selling off some of your assets. So just wanting to make that clear, you can now overspend your transfer budget, which is pretty cool, but be very wary when you do so. And that does lead me on nicely to the next bit, which is all about if you break FFP, if you spend too much money, if your club goes into administration, what's going to happen then? Well, I don't know about you, but I've had lots of Football Manager saves, even ones where I've spent a lot of money. I don't often find the club going into administration. I feel like you have to do something pretty wrong for that to happen. Although, if you are someone that gets into that situation, there's some extra things that are going to happen. You'll be notified that transfer funds have been withdrawn. Administrators will come in and start taking offers for your players if you don't pay a player's wages. The Players Association will step in and you'll be placed under transfer embargo until you've paid those players' wages. It also looks like you can put up some kind of repayment plan by using the company voluntary agreement, if I've understood that right. Again, it's interesting, it's cool features to add, but I don't think many of us are in those situations where you go into administration, but if you do, it'll be more true to life and you're going to have those administrators knocking on your door trying to get that money back. Then we get onto the new and dynamic income streams, which I think is something that a lot of us are going to absolutely love. Particularly this section here, it says there's greater fluctuation in the income your club receives, thereby creating more dynamism and intrigue in every career. It says you'll now see that we've included fixed length TV deals. There'll be a news item indicating the changes in these TV deals and the percentage that has on competition prize money. Now, they don't necessarily outright say it, but if this is what I think it is, it could be a big change to you guys who are doing Build a Nation saves, or at least saves in leagues that aren't the biggest leagues in the world that have a lot of money. This looks like if you managed in, say, the Swedish divisions, and eventually your Swedish club started appearing in the Champions League more and becoming one of the biggest sides in world football over the course of 10 years, there'll be more people wanting to watch your team, and hopefully that means these TV deals will be dynamic. So when they eventually go to renew these TV deals for the Swedish league in this example, they might be paying more of a premium to see your club, and therefore the league starts making more money and you can really take that league upwards, which is something that a lot of us have struggled with when doing Build a Nation saves. When you start in a small nation, the only way to really make big amounts of cash with those small teams was to go far in European competitions, or the equivalent of, depending on what continent you're playing in. But now it looks like if you keep developing your side and the league as a whole gets better and better, we we should see new TV deals with more money coming in for those leagues, which is great. And it's really going to help with the Builder Nation saves, like I mentioned. There's also more news articles that will give you clarity on how your season ticket prices have changed based on if you've got promoted and relegated. There's also some interesting stuff if you enjoy lower league management. This is definitely worth a read here. It won't apply to most people, but if you're playing with a non-professional club and then they go on to become professional, that will now happen at the end of a season. And there'll also be more financial setbacks if you don't switch back from professional to semi-professional following relegation to lower division. So if you became a professional club and got relegated to a semi-professional point, there will be more financial setbacks. But I imagine most of you will have lost your job if you're doing that anyway. I think you'll be sacked long before you can see those changes happen. But there you go, their most intelligent market yet. That's going to work for AI managers in the transfer market, how finances work, and also player development. One of the things I'm most excited for. Some things aren't going to revolutionize your save, but I certainly like the way this is going. There are definitely some improvements, under the hood improvements kind of how the AI are going to operate that's really going to help with our saves and make them more realistic and fun. But there we go, I've done a lot of talking. Make your mind up, let me know in the comments what you think about it. Like the video if you found it useful. I'll link the article in the description for you as well. And with that being said, that's everything, so I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.